Blended workforces are one of the hottest talent strategies today, where employers are using a mix of traditional employees with external resources like independent contractors, coaches, consultants, vendors, and technology solutions, all in order to enhance competitiveness, ensure cost flexibility, and expedite business goals. But how are the successful companies infusing blended workforces into their business strategy? And what are the critical success factors and pitfalls to avoid during implementation? And on the flip side, what does it really take for suppliers to improve their chances of finding and landing contract opportunities? The devil is in the details, my friends. I'm your host, Karen Farrell Rhodes, and it's time to get smarter about blended workforces at work. Hello, superstars. Welcome to another episode of the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. We're so happy to have you on today's show. And we're thrilled, absolutely thrilled to spotlight Andy Hilliard today. Andy is the CEO of Accelerance, let me get that pronunciation correct, which is a firm that helps companies find the talent that they need to scale globally distributed software engineering and product development teams. As you know, with blended workforces, the areas of IT and software development were one of the first job professions that really adopted a blended workforces. And so I'm fascinated to hear from Amy in just a second about their work and how they are providing critical talent to today's companies. But before we do that, I just wanted to note that Accelerance uses a proprietary matching program that Andy's going to tell us about. And then they connect clients to the top 1% of outsourcing partners worldwide, which is absolutely phenomenal. He's also the author of the award-winning book, Synergia, a blueprint for building effective, globally distributed teams in the new era of software development. So welcome to the show, Andy.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we are just absolutely thrilled. Well, before we dive deep into what Accelerance does and a lot of your book, for as much as you feel comfortable, we'd love for you to give us just a sneak peek into your personal life or hobbies.
Okay, well, personal life and hobbies. That's a lot.
And or whatever you feel comfortable.
So I live in Northern California around Sonoma, which you may know, Napa Valley, Sonoma, wine country. I grew up here, but I left when I was 17, a long time ago, and lived in various places around the country, and also a few years in Costa Rica as a Peace Corps volunteer. I raised a family of 3 young adults now in Charlotte. I was in Charlotte for 23 years after graduate school in Chicago at Northwestern. And, just to keep it short, as far as hobbies are concerned, when I'm not working on the business and trying to grow the business, a lot of what my business does is travel the world and assess software development partners to determine that 1%, that there's 30,000 development shops on the globe. But there's only one, right, scalable, aligned partner for any given client. The client has specific vision and a culture and what they want to do, their technology and all. And so luckily my business allows me to help, connect clients and these partners. And in order to do that, we need to have certified partners that are trustworthy and proven. So it takes me all over the world. I've been to 67 countries, I think. And so, I guess it's a good job if you can get it.
Can I just say I'm so envious of you because I love to travel globally as well, but I've only hit 35 countries. So I
was good.
slacking right now compared to you.
Well, if you had a business that paid for it, you could hit more countries, I'm sure.
Yeah, I did. Actually, a lot of them was when I worked for Microsoft. I worked for them for almost 14 years, and I was a global function over their high potential leadership development. And so by doing that, I got to travel a lot. So probably half of those came out of that. I hear you. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Andy. So let's go ahead and dive in, and let's start by having you share a bit more about the company Accelerant and what you and your team do and how you provide value.
It's important to set the stage here because I know a lot of your listeners are thinking, well, you're a software engineering company. Well, we're not that. We don't have software engineers. We will help you find the right partner out of those 30,000 development shops, and the right partners for the right reasons, whether it's, you have a focus on geography or technical stack, or maybe vertical expertise or application type. Maybe you have a certain, scalable size you want to achieve, and therefore a partner that's too small or too big might not be the right fit. Obviously, you have a certain amount of experience and preferences based on your own track record. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that the right partner that has been proven and certified by us, we've been working together for years, so we know they perform exceedingly well for customers. But it's all about taking the global supply of 30,000, breaking it down into, 1% of that is 300, but 300 is 299 too many. It all gets down to what is that right partner that aligns on every important criteria, that a client is looking for. But it doesn't stop there, because, whether you go out and find that right partner by yourself, diamond in the rough, win the lottery, whatever you want to call it, or whether you use us or some other platform to maybe, in the end, you're having this relationship, or you're gathering these people. Maybe you're hiring individuals, one off, but that still only gets you to like this, conceptual sprint zero. It only gets you the input. You need to have the engine, the ecosystem, the culture, the processes, the measurements, in order to take this found talent that you're searching for, the talent that is more cost effective and maybe hyper specialized to do something. And wow, this is great talent. How do we turn that talent into value? Through product development and software engineering. That's the other thing. So we're not a dev shop. We will help you find the dev shops that all they focus on is getting the best talent and delivering services. But we'll also consult with clients in order to help them turn that fuel, that talent, that human resource fuel, into productive, working, highly effective culture, environment, and ultimately, value generating output.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a fantastic business model. So you're not only like, and I don't mean to like boil it down, but you're a matchmaker to find the best partner talent for that company. And then you also stick around, that just don't leave them hanging high and dry. You stick around to help them infuse it within their organizations and within the processes. Is that correct, or is
Yeah,
it a little
that,
bit
that is
more?
correct, Karen. And over the last couple of years, when I mentioned 30,000 development shops, and these development shops, hire engineers. But again, there's 30,000 of them. And over the last couple of years, that has grown from 10,000 to 30,000. Well, how does it grown, you know, twofold in just the last couple of years? And the reason being is that in the old days, when you thought of a software development, offshore software development partner, you thought of a big building with multiple floors and a bunch of cubicles where everyone would commute in and, of course, sit next to one another. Well, today's different. Everything's delivered remotely and in a distributed fashion. So it's much easier for a company to be created, because you don't need to have the physical infrastructure and the leasehold improvements and the commute and all the friction of something that is a high capital expense. Now you can say, hey, we're a software services company. We provide all these services, and our people are distributed all over the place. You tell us what you need, and we will find the people and bring them together. So it's much easier to just sort of set up a shop nowadays, which also makes it more hard to separate the legitimate, the proven, partners, because anyone can say
Yes.
anything, and anyone can use ChatGPT to throw up a commercial, enterprise, and to claim that they have 10,000 people. Everyone has 10,000. Everyone has zero people. It's like the world is your oyster, and you can find
Right.
people anywhere. So, to separate the reality from the fiction, the wheat from the chaff, whatever you want to call it. Well, it's because we travel the world and we kick the tires, and we build relationships, and we know what we're looking for. I mean, I started my career at Cognizant back in the mid
I
90s.
remember
It just started
Cognizant.
off.
Yeah.
I mean, there were
Yeah.
700 of the top IIT graduates in India, and they spun out of Dun and Bradstreet. to serve the marketplace. And I was like just a handful of North Americans. So I really understood. I mean, in 3 years that I was there, they went from 700 to 25,000. Yeah.
Wow.
And today they're 300,000. But, when they grew to a certain size, I thought, they're clearly going to be serving Fortune 1000 companies. In order to continue growing as a public company, they need to increase by tens of thousands every year. So they're not going to do that by serving small cap and mid cap companies. So who is serving small?
Is that what Accelerance serves? Is that who they serve?
Yeah, we
Okay.
serve the 96% of the marketplace who doesn't have access to the Accentures and the Cognizants and the Infosys of the world because there's relatively small fish, and these tier one
Sure.
service providers are serving, the whales, the
Yeah.
swordfish. And so if most companies also want access to global talent, to great leadership, proven leadership, and how do they find those companies? How do they find those companies between 100 engineers and 1,000 engineers that are, I like to say, big enough to scale but small enough to care? That
Yeah.
also have like Cognizant had before they became mega large. Do they have thought leadership? Do they have business leadership? Do they have practice leadership? Are they really hiring the top talent in their marketplace? Are they really strong problem solvers? Are they good communicators? Do they build a relationship with us that is more than transactional, but is holistic? I mean, and that's where the 1% comes in because most companies don't do that. They're very transactional. The clients are transactional.
They
The
don't have the
partners
time or
are
bandwidth to do that, you know?
yeah, but I know
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. I mean, I left Cognizant and started a dev shop in Costa Rica. So I moved my family to Costa Rica, founded a dev shop in Costa Rica, ran that for about 4.5, 5 years, grew from 0 to 300 people. And I modeled it after we're a mini Cognizant, we're a mini Accenture, we're a mini IBM. What does that mean? Well, because they're not going to answer your calls. IBM isn't, you're too small. You may need 5, 10, 50, 100 engineers. Don't even call the big tier one service providers. Who do you go to? Well, there's 10,000 dev shops out there. Well, I just need one. How do I choose them? How do I know which one's legit? And so come to us because, I know what legit looks like. I know how legit acts. I know, but they're hard to find because there's just so much options out there.
No, you're totally right. Can I circle back and ask you to, because I know there's a variety of people that listen to the podcast, can you share the difference between offshore and nearshore outsourcing?
Sure. So the evolution of offshoring was once in a more of a manufacturing production sense. Is that the cost of producing X? I always use wicker chairs for some reason because I think it's just it's a commoditized thing, whether it's cars or rocket ships or whatever. You're trying to find the lowest cost of goods and services in order to produce a high quality, low cost product to get to market faster. And that started off with like India and China because they had the highest quantity of labor, lowest cost of labor, access to natural resources. They were well educated, population, around engineering and that could produce goods, right? And as the internet started to grab hold in the mid 90s, and there was such a massive, immediate high demand for digitalization of businesses, whether that's how to communicate and process and transact digitally, how to run your systems internally digitally, and how to create efficiencies, both external and internal to your organization. There's just a massive demand for talent, for software development talent and teams and processes, what we call software development lifecycle, the SDLC. How are teams formed? How are teams run? What are the processes that are repeatable? How can we certify and get certifications around ISO and agile development and all these buzzwords, right? But it's all about how digital products, like physical products in the old days, how digital products will be conceived, passed along to a well-formed and functioning team, and how that produces like high quality product that can then be put out to the marketplace. You get feedback, you improve on that, and you have a competitive advantages because you're faster to the marketplace, you're producing high quality products at a lower average cost. Hopefully you have a good culture where there's good continuity and low turnover, and that reflects well on your company and also on just the speed of which you're producing good product to the marketplace.
Excellent. Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes it a lot clearer. Now, since you all don't
Oh, by the way,
particularly have,
can I just
I'm
remark
sorry?
one thing? So your original
Yes.
question about offshore. So offshore was typically large countries, China, India, those around the world, on the other side of the world. Near shore is more like proximity, same time zone alignment, something where if you share, it could be East Coast and you share 3, 4 hours with Europe. It could be America where you're sharing 7, 8 hours with Latin America. That's near shore.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, you mentioned that at Accelerance, you all don't have your own like engineers per se because you're working with these partners. What is your business model? How do you all make money? Is it just the making that connection, or is it through the consulting or certifications or other ways?
So you mentioned two ways. One is, you remember before I mentioned that there's the talent portion or the fuel, the talent fuel, and you have the essentially the function or the machine of which that fuel, the people, will then organize and produce efficient product to serve the marketplace. So we earn money on the finding the right teams and talent for people, because with garbage in, garbage out. So it's very important that you choose the right partnership. And typically companies,
And that's why you invest so much in your
yeah,
kicking the tires, if you will, going, making sure they're legit.
yeah. I mean, we have literally 500 due diligence areas that we uncover to make sure that everything is as it is marketed, as it is sold, as it is promised. And ultimately, you have to build a relationship based on trust and radical candor and
Right.
commitment and accountability. So it can't stop at the honeymoon or the wedding phase. It has to have enough gravitas and proven excellence to serve a customer in the most effective way possible. Every customer is different. Every partner is different. That's why we literally have 300 partners, of which 70 are sort of tier one, 230 are sort of tier 1B, I guess. They happen to be more nichey, but all of these partners have been proven over time to deliver a certain set of specific services that are very aligned and unique to whatever that customer happens to have. So, for example, if someone says, "Well, what do you focus on, Andy?" Because we have 300 partners, if let's say a client comes to us and said, "Had horrible experience outsourcing. Outsourcing doesn't work. We're in the entertainment business, and we need someone to help us build, augmented reality applications, and they have to have the mobile application. They have to, serve this public. And I've just had horrible, hypothetically, experience outsourcing to, let's say, Asia, and I don't know much about Eastern Europe, but I'm really intrigued about this same time zone collaboration with Latin America. Oh, and the size of your team, well, I think we want to start with 5 or 10, but I can see, like, over time, I just want a borderless, labelless team and maybe it'll be 50% domestic and 50% otherwise. And I don't know, domestic, it could be all over the States or it doesn't matter where they are. I just want, one team. I'm like, so near shore, same time zone, team of 5 to 50, augmented reality, entertainment industry. We have partners in Latin America that are certified, that have worked with us in the entertainment industry, specifically in augmented reality. This is what they focus on. They hire people specifically to develop it. I'm like, where did you find? Everything is perfectly aligned. That's what we do. I mean,
That's wonderful. I'd be sold. Get me to
I
them.
mean, it starts with the right match, and it starts with a verified right match. Because if you were to go out and ask 10 general service companies, what do you focus on? They're like, well, what do you want us to focus on?
Right.
That's what
We
we
do
focus on.
everything you want.
Anything you want. And
Yeah.
so it's not about the promise, it's about the verification of all of these important aspects that a client deems valuable to them: culture or location or tech or whatever that is. And you have weighting. It's like, well, I'm really focused on the technology, And I'm if geography, I'm more flexible, and finding that right match. Now, the right match again just gets you to the starting gate,
Right.
because there's many great partners and poor clients that don't really have a philosophy, a cultural set of values that they deem they want to have an arm's length relationship so that they can blame somebody, or that they really just want to throw it over the wall and just get stuff back. And that's really not where we play. We help companies sort of break down those barriers and create this mentality that your people are everywhere. They're contractors, they're full time, they're here, they're
That's right.
there, you know?
So, what do you think are one of the big mistakes that your clients make going into when they first contact you? Are there misconceptions that they have, or expectations that are too high or too low? Can you share a couple
Yeah.
of those that you see?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it happens every day. And that is, they think their end in mind is finding cheaper talent, which they will. They will find less expensive talent because supply and demand. Guess what, Karen? Only 13% of the software developers in this world are in the United States. 87% are not. Why would you ignore that talent? That talent is lower cost, they're more hyper specialized. And I'm not saying everything should be in that, offshore pool, but it is a pool that can be blended together. And if you treat it right, essentially is like you and I. I'm in California, and
I'm in Atlanta.
yeah, and we're working together. So it doesn't
Yes,
really matter. So the first thing is that they think just finding the quote unquote talent is the end goal. And it's just the beginning of the journey, as I said before. The other thing is this binary transactional us versus them mentality. It's and litigious. I'll throw that in there too. Americans especially are very transactional. It's like I want to build a wicker chair and I'm going to send my requirements to China. And if I don't like what they get, I'm going to send it back and tell them
send
to
it
work
back.
on it again. And in the end,
Yes, we do.
yeah, I will sue them if I don't get the quality and the speed that I want at the cost that I want. I want what
Yeah.
I want. Americans are very demanding, but software is an art. It's a team sport, and people need to sort of erase that binary transactional approach to outsourcing and really embrace a what we call one shore, which is basically offshore, near shore. It's all one shore. That's where the name Synergia, it's a combination of synergy and Pangea. Pangea was the period
Uh,
in the world where there was only one continent before all the continents broke off, depending on your theology or whatever. But the reality was all the continents were, essentially one. Yes, there were no human beings, but imagine, like, John Lennon used to say, imagine, no borders, and imagine we were all one. So it's a little bit, it sounds a little bit kumbaya. I mean, it comes, everything that I stand for today came from my years in the Peace Corps. And, the Peace Corps is about building trust, building familiarity, appreciation of different cultures, commitment and accountability, and treating people as equals. Empowering people, being a servant leader to one another, so that they can serve you better. That's the whole
I
thing.
love.
And that does sound a little kumbaya, but honestly, that is the missing secret sauce of building effective software with teams that are globally distributed. And by globally, I don't mean outside the US, I mean Metro Atlanta, Charlotte, California, Denver, Mexico, Vietnam, Ukraine, wherever. Those are
Location
just
agnostic.
names,
Yeah.
those are names and labels with borders that, politicians have set in order to, maintain control and a certain identity, I guess. But, in the world of software
Within the
engineering,
line.
there's great talent everywhere. And we should just eliminate all of
Everywhere.
those artificial constructs.
I love that. You're so absolutely right. And as a fellow world traveler, I always say that we're more alike than different, and you find talent in every nip and tuck of the globe. So I totally understand. So I'm kumbaya and with you. So,
Well, Karen, I mean,
now,
in this world that we live in, we all hate change. Change is hard, but change is
yeah,
inevitable. And if you don't change, the world's going to change without you, and it's going to leave you behind. And also, In a chaotic world and chaotic adulthood, we seek comfort, and comfort is us versus them. It's retracting back into your own bubble and rejecting other bubbles and rejecting other people. And as comfortable as that may seem, it's not competitive. It's not viable in a competitive marketplace. It's not conducive to producing great software when you have 87% of the talent outside of the US. You got to fight it, and you got to stay uncomfortable, and you got to take a different mentality to things, because if you just retreat, you're going to be slower to market, higher cost, not the quality isn't going to be as good, and you're going to lose out on all the benefits that your competitors are just beating you soundly on a daily basis.
So it's so funny, Andy. I'm looking down on my sheet, and I think I've gotten to 2 of the 25 questions I want to ask you, but I would be remiss if I didn't at least let you highlight in this episode before we move. And I want you to give us an overview of your book in just a second. But what are your thoughts on AI right now? That's so hot right now, and I know there's concerns about it eliminating roles, and including software development. How's that going to impact the partners or what have you? What are your thoughts about AI in the marketplace that you play in?
Well, it will eliminate roles that are those roles that the entire role is comprised of low level repetitive
Okay.
tasks. I mean, it's inevitable. Same with the industrial age 120 years ago, that transformed the world, and this is going to transform the world too. It's going to eliminate a lot of tasks. It's going to automate a lot of tasks. It's going to multiply we're already seeing companies where the engineers, their output of quality code to build digital products has multifolded, 5, 10x, because augmented reality is, automates things. It's a co-pilot. There's certain things that I don't want to say we'll never do, but if it actually gets to that point, then we have to worry about our, very survival, because the machines will take over, Terminator stuff, right? But as a co-pilot, it makes people more efficient. It doesn't make ethical or moral decisions. It can't. And it can't apply sort of situational, humanistic decision making. It can, it's machine learning. It is learning patterns from the information that it gathers. So it can take data, it can take patterns, it can make them better, faster, but it can't make sort of holistic, intuitive, moralistic decisions for
Decision.
people. So,
Now, will it change how you evaluate your partners?
absolutely, because we want customers to be taking advantage of partners. We're going to be looking strongly at how our partners are integrating AI into the process velocity, how developers use AI, what tools are they using, how are they using it to co-pilot and increase the velocity and the quality of what they do. In the old days, because so many lines of code are being written by so many engineers, a lot of companies were left with, well, the software functions, but it's kind of janky. The wiring is all weird, spaghetti code, they used to call it. And then you're
Yeah.
left with all of this, legacy code that you have to completely throw away, or because it was put together with, baling wire and duct tape, and somehow it worked.
I remember. Yeah.
And I was happy that it worked. But then, when the partner left, or when they found out that it just wasn't flexible and it just broke down all the time, then you're like, So I don't know, how are humans going to evolve so that the velocity of products and enhancements and upgrades is something that can be handled by humans? I know, like, even at my age, no less my mom. I mean, she can only handle a couple things, and things coming at her
Yeah.
so fast. But
But we will evolve. I think we will in some kind of way. It may not be me personally or my generation, but we're very adaptable, and I think life will, we'll find a way to evolve to coexist, because we have to, because it's going to be there.
yeah,
So really quickly, one of the things we'd love to highlight or ask our guests is, which of the tactics that I wrote about in my leadership book kind of resonated with them. And you were so kind enough to share that leading with intellectual horsepower. really resonated. And for my new listeners, leading with intellectual horsepower is all about using your areas of expertise to kind of like peek around corners and spot trends and connect dots and find new areas of opportunity. And having this had this conversation with you, Andy, it's pretty clear why that one might have resonated a bit. But I want to give you some airtime to say why you think leading with intellectual horsepower is very important in today's world.
So, over the last couple of years, our traditional business was more about helping clients find the right partner. Because at the time there were like 10,000 partners, and like, how do I find them? Well, there's this Accelerance company, and wow, they travel the world. They have a great methodology. But like with any large market, technology is going to try to solve the problem. So all these startup platforms, started coming into existence, and directories, and like, oh, we solved your problem. You can use a platform, and you can go filter, like you're buying a dress or a pair of slacks. You can find a partner and a directory, and I can find it, so I can do it myself. And then AI started really taking off, and there's went from 10,000 to 30,000, and there's more smoke and mirrors being presented because people can pretend that they're anything, and the entire industry really started to become oversaturated and commoditized. Everyone was the same. Everyone was producing the same content, using the same buzzwords, trying to game Google and SEO. And the effect was that you had more poor supply and worse experiences overall. People felt they were empowered, but they were empowered
Not
to
really.
basically get into a messier situation because it was just that they couldn't find, they didn't have the right engine, and they couldn't find the right people, even though they had the tools, or they were told they had the tools. So they were given power to just cause their own pain. So as far as the intellectual horsepower is concerned, you know
Doing things differently.
companies really need to focus on credibility, legitimacy, and obviously this comes at a cost. Like, for example, my company, like, we're really doubling down on bringing in thought leaders, whether internally or externally, contractors or consultants, to align with us, that are long-term practitioners and thought leaders that can take whatever situation a client is in and give them a tangible roadmap and tangible relationships that they can rely on, that are trust-based. When I talk about trust and radical candor and commitment and accountability, these are tangible things that AI can't replicate or fake. AI is so much fake it till you make it sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so, I would be, for anyone, I would be thinking is like, how do I combat the onslaught of competitive smoke and mirrors? And how do I emerge as being more legitimate, more credible, more real, more authentic, more trustworthy? Because everything starts with trust. And you can't do that just by, doing the same as everyone else on the planet, which is, letting AI do their work for them. People are becoming, the tricky transition is, people think that AI can maybe give them a pathway to laziness. It's like, what if I can just have
Not at
AI do
all.
my job?
You got to be
No,
sharper.
first off,
Not
become more
lazy.
authentic and work harder to
Yep,
understand how AI is going to enhance your trustworthiness and
that's right.
enhance your authenticity.
You're so right. Well, Andy, I'm so sorry. This is all the time we have for today. I knew when we started I could talk for hours with you, but I want to let you have voice into where folks can find more about Accelerance and your book.
Sure. Well, you could reach me at andy@accelerance.com, and it's accelerance.com is the website. The book, as you said, Karen, is Synergia. You could find that on basically any book platform. I think actually the Kindle digital version is only $2.99, and the hardback is $20.99. And yeah, so if you're looking to build a culture of software and product development that is, borderless, that is a combination of just the right people with the right hyper specialization in the right seats, within the right culture, within the right sort of framework and function, that is working holistically and smartly together. It's more than just talent. it's more than just finding people with a resume that says they do something X. It's really, I mean, it's an ecosystem that we can help you with. I'm very, very holistic in our approach to these things, and I think we serve the small and mid cap companies. The companies that want to compete on the global stage, want to have the best practices at play.
Yep.
Want to take advantage of this talent filled world.
Well, I personally, as an organizational strategist, I personally thank you all for the work you're doing, because so many times I see companies working with, those on the external side of the blended workforces world, and they just want a person in the seat, and they don't do the go the extra mile to really infuse them into their culture and make
Yeah.
sure that things, all T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and things are clicking. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a great conversation.
Oh, thanks, Karen. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you to listeners for listening in to another episode of the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. We really appreciate your time, because we know you could have spent it other ways. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and share it with just one friend, so that we can expand our reach and get smarter about blended workforces at work. Thanks so much, and see you next week.
Well, that's our show for today. Thank you again for listening to the Blended Workforces at Work podcast. You can check out the show notes, additional episodes, bonus resources, and also submit guest recommendations on our website at blendedworkforcesatwork.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube by searching for the name Karen Rhodes, with Karen being spelled Karan. And if you like the show, the greatest gift you can give would be to subscribe and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform of choice. This podcast has been a production of Shockingly Different Leadership, a global consultancy which helps organizations execute their people, talent development, and organizational effectiveness initiatives on an on-demand, contract, fractional, or project basis. Huge thanks to the SDL production and editing team for a job well done. Bye for now.